Welcome back to the Retirement Chef, Whipping Up Wealth with Brian Butler, the CEO and Senior Wealth Advisor for Wealth Standard Financial out of Houston, Texas. And Brian and the team would love for you to check them out at wealthstandardfinancial.com or dial them up, 713-955-6007. Isn't it nice, Brian, that here in 2025, we don't have to worry about paying long distance and putting a 1 or, dialing 10-10-321 or something before that, huh?
Oh, I remember those days. The days of the payphone and the calling cards that you had to do to dial long distance.
Crazy.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it's so nice. You didn't have to promote, hey, this is a toll-free number, 888-955, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you could just get right into it here. Thanks to cell phone technology, that has made the world flat in so many ways. And, of course, it's free to go to wealthstandardfinancial.com. And, by the way, it's free to have that opening conversation with you, Brian. Now, in our last few episodes, the most recently we talked about, do I have enough money to retire? Previously, before, we talked about the tax benefits of Roth IRAs and qualified versus non-qualified money. Both of those questions kind of help prompt us forward to the next situation, which is, do I need a tax planner? And it's like, hey, tax planners are often financial advisors, but not all financial advisors are tax planners. And us having that conversation, Brian, it reminded me of a meandering and long joke, and long as part of the punchline here, that Norm Macdonald told years ago on Conan O'Brien's show. And it basically goes through, he's describing all these different iterations of a moth that flew into a podiatrist's office. So here's the tail end of that, and you'll see why there's something to chuckle at here.
He says, Doc, sometimes I feel like a spider, even though I'm a moth, just barely hanging on to my web with an everlasting fire underneath me. I'm not feeling good. And so the doctor says, Moth, man, you're troubled, but you should be seeing a psychiatrist. Why on earth did you come here? And then the moth said, because the light was on.
Sometimes people just end up inheriting their parents' financial advisor or going to the first place they saw a commercial, or going because it's their uncle, or not that there's anything wrong with that, but it really takes a little more research, especially when it comes to tax planning. So first question, Brian, is who needs a tax planner? And secondly, can you be that person, or what kind of people can?
Most retirees and people that make significant income are going to need a tax planner of some sort. The tax code is meant to deceive you a little bit if you don't have somebody to help you navigate it, or you're not spending the time to really research the areas that are going to help you from a tax planning standpoint. So when you retire, taxes and healthcare are probably your number one and number two bills that you're going to have. And so from an investment standpoint, everybody likes investments. That's what all is on TV. When you're on CNBC, Fox Business, you're seeing and inundated with the stock market and investments. But there's no channel to talk about taxes.
Yeah.
Even though it's a huge part of your plan. If we can save you a significant amount in taxes by strategizing and structuring your assets, a lot of times we can make you more money by doing that than we ever could in the stock market. Now, don't get me wrong, we believe in our processes and everything in the stock market, but they all work together. And so when I started this firm in 2016, we intentionally built it to be able to help people with tax strategy, estate strategy, which, piggybacks on tax strategy. Whereas, the firm I was at before and many other firms around the country are by mandate not able to help you with tax and estate strategy. And so we partnered. We have a great advanced solutions team that full of CPAs, full of tax attorneys, estate people, trust attorneys that can collaborate with you and kind of give you and strategize on different ways that can help you from a tax standpoint. And so we had people coming to us all the time with retirement questions, and then those retirement questions inevitably led straight to taxes. Can you help me with this? And when we say yes, we tell them this is one of the differentiators of us in the market as retirement planners, that we can really be tax strategists. And so how do we do that? We have a great tax team that can actually do your taxes if you need them to. We bounce questions off of you. And even if you don't want to use us from a tax standpoint, we'll work with your CPA or tax attorney and build your plan out with your permission, of course, so that way we're being as efficient as possible and giving you a great chance to have a great retirement.
Great chance to have a great retirement. And I think that's interesting. You mentioned that number 1 and 2 bills in retirement are healthcare and taxes. How do people end up being surprised by those tax expenses? Because go back 2 episodes ago, qualified versus non-qualified money. I've heard of the tax bomb if you have those pre-qualified or those qualified accounts. So what are maybe some of the big surprises that people encounter? Because they probably think, well, my biggest expense is going to be, healthcare, and then they think it's going to be just my day-to-day living expenses. But, and then there's taxes.
Many times people's 401k plan is their biggest and number one asset. And so usually that's a traditional 401k, which means all the money that they got tax deductions on along the way has been growing and growing and growing. But that tax bill is going to come due. So when you start distributing and needing income in retirement, you're going to have to pay taxes. And the myth that most people have said, well, I'm not going to be working, so of course I'm going to be in a much lower tax bracket. That's not necessarily the case. And so one thing we know about our government is they will kick the can down the road. So what the tax rates that we have at historical low rates right now, at some point, we think that they're going to have to go up just because, one, baby boomers are the number one generation retiring right now.
Sure.
Gen Xers and millennials have not had children at the same clip as baby boomers.
Nope.
And so if we're not able to have a bigger tax base, well, taxes have to go up. Now, no party wants to be the party that raises taxes, but at some point you're going to have to. And we look at it from a historical standpoint. In the 80s, Ronald Reagan was the first president to tax your Social Security. A few years later, Bill Clinton was the second president to tax their Social Security at a higher rate. So one's a Republican, one's a Democrat. Yeah. Guess what happened? They taxed your Social Security. And so
when you mean taxing it, you mean paying taxes off of it as it is income when you are retired.
Correct.
Not the taxes you pay pre-retirement to build the Social Security fund.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And well, it's interesting because President Trump right now, not that there's anything that's been signed yet, but President Trump is talking about he wants to eliminate Social Security taxes along with extending his tax cuts. Well, somewhere that money's going to have to be made up for.
Exactly. And in the case with taxes from that standpoint, what happens in 4 years? What happens in 20 years?
Yeah.
So if you're planning a 30-year retirement, you're going to have Democratic administrations, you're going to have Republican administrations that have different targets that they want, different tax environments, different needs of the country. So you don't know what those are going to be. So how do you build out a strategic retirement plan that pairs with your tax plan to get you where you want to go? And then not necessarily to forget about the generations to come that are going to have to foot this tax bill. How can you protect those assets that you want to leave to the people that are most important to you and the charities and organizations that you really care about? How do you build that strategy out, not just today, but tomorrow and, years from now? We help you with that. And that's the importance of having an advisor that can also be a tax strategist.
And you're not just, of course you have to be this too. You're not only, though, somebody that's just looking at the rules. Hey, we love talking about AI these days, right? But you actually have, and I'm not saying it's specifically AI, but you have a lot of tools that can help model this out, right?
Absolutely. So we have a few tools from a tax standpoint where we'll look at your past tax returns. We'll give you detailed reports on those, giving you some clarity on your tax situation now, and then give you some projections and actual actionable items that you can implement today to help position you for the future. And so a little bit of work today and a little bit of partnership can pay huge dividends potentially in the future.
Has there been somebody that's come in to do everything else but the tax planning with you, all the other services, wealth management and so forth, and income planning and retirement, and they have a CPA, or a tax planner on the side? you run these models of them looking at their overall finances, and they've been able to take it back to their CPA because maybe it's something that the CPA didn't find?
Absolutely. We've done that plenty of times because two eyes are better than one.
Yeah.
So sometimes we come up with scenarios that the CPA missed, and sometimes CPA comes up with something that we didn't think about. And so being collaborative from a tax planning strategy rather than, trying to keep everybody in a silo, it really is the benefit to the client. And so if we're able to put all their tax strategy, their estate strategy, their care strategy from a health standpoint, and their investments and income planning all together, that's what financial planning really is. How are we managing the risk, the tax environment, the political environment, the markets? There's so many things when it comes to retirement because that paycheck has to keep going to fund the lifestyle that you want. And how can you do that? It's not necessarily just a huge number that you're trying to hit, but it's the cash flow, it's how much you're going to keep. That's what we're really focused on.
Oh, yeah, that's a great way to pivot into this. And if somebody's hearing about this and they're like, hey, I need to have this conversation with Brian and his team, where do they go? How does that begin?
So they can go to our website, wealthstandardfinancial.com, check out our process, Wealth Flow 360, and it'll give you some details on the different segments of financial planning, how we plan for you so that you can really take advantage. So one of our main sections of Wealth Flow 360 is our tax and estate tune-up. We're going to look at your tax situation, give you a report that you can take back to your CPA, you can review, and then we can help you implement from a tax strategy standpoint. And so when you're on there, there are plenty of reports. Do you have enough money to retire? Will my money run out? Your retirement risk score. Go on there, get some of those reports, and then make the free strategy session. So you can have a strategy session virtually, or you can have it in person if you're local to Houston. And we'd love to talk to you. We have clients all over the country, so don't let distance be a barrier because we'd love to hear from you.
Well, for sure. So go to wealthstandardfinancial.com. There's a hamburger menu on there, one of those, the triple line deals. Top right of the page, you can click on that and start clicking on insights and tools and finding some of those things that Brian just mentioned. And again, it's a no obligation, free first conversation with Brian and his team there at wealthstandardfinancial.com. And let me mention the number too, 713-955-6007. And yes, by the way, it is tax season already, but tax planning, Brian, is not just in tax season. This is stuff you're looking at the whole year. You're not just worried about when to take a required minimum distribution in December. You're not just worried about paying the tax bill April the 15th or before. This is something you need to look at all the time, right?
Yeah, tax planning is a year-round sport. And so let us help you and give you those free reports at least. That will get you started, and then you'd be surprised where it takes you.
Well, make that conversation. Get it started right now. wealthstandardfinancial.com or again, 713-955-6007. Brian, thanks so much for lending your wisdom to this. We're good to be back at the saddle here, and I look forward to learning more from you. I'm sure everyone else does too.
Hey, I'm excited. I think this episode was going to help a lot of people, and I can't wait for the next one.
Yeah, same here. Find all of our episodes, by the way, on Apple and Spotify. There's a YouTube page as well that's been going. You could get on the Facebook page for Wealth Standard Financial and check out some of their posts and content they're putting out there. And if you're checking this out, send the link to somebody else. Make sure people in your circle know about it that also need help with planning taxes or anything else in the financial tree, so to speak, and turn on the notifications. These episodes are starting to come out again every 2 weeks or so, and we want you to be in the know as soon as possible. So thank you all for listening. And Brian, again, thank you for your time.
Hey, thanks, Doug.
And thank you so much to our producer. You're more than welcome, by the way. Daniel Salerson. Know he's happy to help us out getting this all published and put out there. Thank you all for listening. He's Brian Butler, the CEO and Senior Wealth Advisor at Wealth Standard Financial. And this has been the Retirement Chef, whipping up wealth. We'll talk to y'all again very soon.
The opinions voiced in The Retirement Chef, Whipping Up Wealth with Brian Butler, are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Investing involves risk, including possible loss of principal. No strategy assures success or protects against loss. To determine what may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, financial, or tax advisor prior to investing. Guests on The Retirement Chef, Whipping Up Wealth are not affiliated with CWM LLC. Investment advisory services offered through CWM LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor.